What is up, party people? Hope you guys are well on this gorgeous Tuesday. Took a few days off, relaxing, getting ready for the big push towards, well, it's going to be spring, summer, chaos, insanity, all the usual stuff. As I took these days off, I thought to self, what are you going to do? Relax? Yeah. Let all this craziness with what's going on with Abrego and all of this stuff kind of work past it. Right? Then the Pope died, and we'll touch a little bit on that in a little bit. But sure enough, the Battle of Abrego is still going on. The battle of a guy who, whether he was an MS-13 member or he's not an MS-13 member, the reality is he was here illegally. There are due process issues. We need to talk about those. I'm good with that. But I watch the Democrats just flail on a daily basis trying to figure out what to do with this guy. And it is hilarious. So you had Van Hollen go down there a couple days ago, and then followed by, well, this crack crew heading down to El Salvador to do what? I'm not quite sure. But one thing they were told is you're not doing it on the taxpayer dollar.
Returned from El Salvador after seeking the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They were denied a meeting with the Maryland father who was deported to his home country in what the Trump administration has called, and I'm quoting now, an administrative error. Those lawmakers are joining us right now. Congresswoman Maxine Dexter of Oregon and Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari of Arizona and Congressman Robert Garcia of California and Congressman Maxwell Frost of Florida. Congressman Frost, why did you feel it was important to travel to El Salvador now?
Well, the main thing is that in this country, everybody is entitled to due process. And we see that in this case, but in many cases, these folks were not afforded due process. And the problem is the Supreme Court has handed down a decision to the Trump administration saying they must facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. And now they've decided to completely defy that Supreme Court ruling. And so we are in a constitutional crisis right now. And as representatives, we all have constituents that have been reaching out to us by the hundreds saying, do something about this. Make sure people don't forget about this. Not only does he need to come home, but we need to we need to ensure that we draw the line here because we don't want it to escalate any further. This is the same president that in the Oval Office recently said the next people he wants to send to El Salvador are quote unquote homegrowns. Talking about U.S. citizens. And so we have to do everything we can right now. We went over there to try our best to see him, to make sure he's okay. But again, it's not just about him. It's about the broader issue as well.
Trump wins every time you guys talk about it. First of all, you are failing, but that's not a shocker. You're failing because you're choosing a path that you're not going to win. And facilitate doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get him back. He's an El Salvadorian citizen. He's in his country. Should he have been sent back? No. Should they give him due process? Talked about it last week. How about this? Take him to the embassy and boom, you sit down and you have a Zoom call with a judge that is there, who is a judge that maybe has already adjudicated his case, which has been done twice, and you go from there. So he's on American soil, in theory, because he's at the, embassy. And he has his case heard via Zoom, which a lot of us had to do in COVID. And you handle it that way. He deserves due process. You're not going to get this whole thing where I hear a lot of people every day, no, he doesn't deserve anything, throw him out. No, give us due process. And yes, it was a mistake. But now he's in the custody of his home country. And what do you want them to do? Well, they could force their hand. They could, but they're not going to. Everybody knows that. And they can say, we asked. They said no. No, what else you guys want us to do? You want us to invade El Salvador to get him back? That's not going to happen. But every time you do this, as 83% of America is currently worried about the economy, tariffs, what's going to happen to their personal budget, let alone their business, you guys continue, as Big Red said, to, be the mayor of Clowntown. Even Gavin Gruesome Newsom
This is the
said,
distraction
of
the day. The art of distraction. It's a tough case.
Because people are they defending MS-13? Are they defending, someone who's out of sight, out of mind in El Salvador? It's exactly the debate they want, because they don't want this debate on the tariffs. They don't want to be accountable to the markets today. They want to have this conversation. Don't get distracted by distractions. Well, don't get distracted by distractions. There you go. But he's right. You go down there and you play this game. Somehow magically you're doing something that is, this guy has a lot of red flags, okay? He's not an American citizen. Take away, let's just say for the sake of argument, no chance he was ever an MS-13. No chance he was ever part of any other, 18th Street gang. No chance he had done any of the things that he is alleged to have done. But he came here legally. He went through the process, and the process, not once but twice, said, you got to go. Continue to make a martyr of somebody and to forget your constituents. Case in point, this is about 2 minutes long, but it's hilarious. Fox News went out on the town. Now you can go film 1,000 people and maybe you get 10 answers that you like and you put them on. But I think this kind of is what a lot of people feel about this. Is, he deserves due process, but you know what? Maryland, we got other things going on.
Designated MS-13 terrorist, and Donald Trump deported him. Mm-hmm. How does that make you feel?
I feel safer.
He gotta go. He gotta go.
Need to go. I mean, that's it.
But he was a father.
But he's still a terrorist.
Okay. I mean, but there's children living without fathers now.
He should have picked and choose, so he picked to be a terrorist instead of worrying about his children.
The Democrats, they want him back. They say he was wrongfully deported. He has a wife and a kid who's a citizen. They're calling this a national emergency. Is this a national emergency?
I wouldn't call it a national emergency. We got more things going on.
We have more things, more fish to fry.
I just found out about it, so I don't think so. What kind of national emergency? For what? What is the emergency for?
Ain't no national emergency, no.
He was accused of hitting his wife twice and was a suspected human smuggler. Was he wrongfully deported?
No. He need to go.
If he's a smuggler, yeah, he needs to be deported.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Your senator here, Chris Van Hollen, he flew to El Salvador where this guy was deported. He met with them, had lunch with them, had margaritas on the table. What's up with your senator?
I have no idea, but I do believe that was a waste of taxpayer dollars.
Margaritas.
We can go on. And he didn't have margaritas. Apparently that was photoshopped. I'm going to be transparent here. Just like I think the knuckles were photoshopped in a certain way too. You don't have to, the selling the game, you don't have to. You're not trying to get him back. You're not going to get him back. Due process, measure once, measure twice, measure 3 times, then cut. Shouldn't be that hard. It is that simple. You've learned, you tried to get people out this weekend. Supreme Court said no. You got to give more than just 24 hours, and you got to. So you go from here. And there are other fish to fry. Those people said it. They're worried about their day-to-day. They're worried about whether or not, if they get a flat tire, can they afford to get a new tire? They're worried about which bill can I push out a week or two and which bill can I pay? And that is everybody in America right now who's got a little bit of, uneasy feeling. They've seen inflation ride. They're worried about tariffs. They're wondering when it's going to hit. And you're over there playing grab ass because you think it's a great photo op. That's not going to work. When Gavin Newsom says you guys are buying into this and it's not going to work out well for you, that says a lot right there, kids. That says a lot. But that's what the Democrats do. They swing and miss. Look, the Republicans got a lot of issues. I talked about it today. Pete Hegseth, this is a debacle. This is not going well for Pete. It isn't. Is he in over his head? I was talking about it today on one of my shows, and somebody's like, I'm Team Pete. You probably think he's a rapist. No, I don't. I don't think he was a drunkard or a rapist, or he's going to get drunk on the job. But I think he may have jumped in there and decided he was going to handle business the way he wanted things done, period, case closed, and he ran through people. The people he got rid of over the weekend, guess what, Pete? Those were your people. Some of them going back a decade with you. People who pushed for you to get the job. People who trusted you, and now you think, these people are bad. Everybody's leaking. No, you're grasping at straws because you're struggling there. That's the reality of it. There is plenty where you could look at this administration and go, yeah, I feel a little uncomfortable. I don't like the way they're handling some business. I feel like that they've got to start, and I understand that you're trying to do a ton of stuff and it's not going to be easy comparatively to the last guy who, was on death's door for quite a while, it felt like, and didn't do anything. But you got to start showing up. And there's plenty of things, if you're the Democrats, you're looking around going, well, we should be focusing on this. We should be focusing on that. But no, they're not. And they don't. Because they choose over and over again the wrong things. Case in point, I always screw this up, and I'm going to look it up here. It is a podcast that's out there. It is called I've Had It. It's two ladies out in Oklahoma. And they had Rahm Emanuel on. And you could tell Rahm had it when they started getting on to certain things like trans issues and whatnot. And I have said, if you were to ask me, if he was to throw his hat in the ring, he's the leader in the clubhouse for the Democrats. It isn't Stephen A. Smith. It isn't any of this. This is the guy who understands how you can talk to the middle, how you can reach out to some disgruntled Republicans, some libertarians, some independents, and grab the Democrats. Because he speaks to a bunch of folk and not just
really
the woke wackiness.
Kitchen table issues. We weren't really good about the family room issues.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you.
Okay, the only room we were doing really well was the bathroom, and that's the smallest room in the house.
That is such bullshit. That is total bullshit. That is buying into the right-wing media narrative, and I'm so.
And by the way, she's going to use a couple bad words here. That's not on me, right? I say shit.
So sick of Democrats like
you guys know that.
Selling out and saying this. You know who talks about trans people more than anybody? MAGA. MAGA is the most genital obsessed political party I have ever seen. Kamala Harris talked about home ownership. She talked about kitchen table issues. Trump's over there droning on about Hannibal Lecter. Are you kidding me? This is where the Democrats lose because we're playing the game with the rule book. They've ripped the rule book up and are cramming it down everybody's throat. And Democrats are upset because Joe Biden pardoned his son. We got to fucking fight. They're the gender obsessed weirdos, not us. We're the ones who fight for Social Security. We fight for Medicare. And we're not going to bully trans people. We're not going to fucking do it.
I'm not again. I'm not
fine.
Hey, let me say this: as mayor, 2016, I dealt with the bathroom issue. It's just not my. It's not my most important issue. It was dealt with, and I appropriately dealt with marriage equality, as I said.
Well, it's certainly important to the Republicans. For me, it's just important not to bully them. And I think this is the death knell
I'm not
of the
disagreeing.
Democrats. It upsets me. It upsets me so much because we live here in this red state, and you see the damage of it. When I see politicians that are supposed to be leaders in the Democratic Party buy into the narrative that Republicans have defined us by, instead of fighting and saying, you're the weirdos that are obsessed with it. Yeah, we're not going to bully some trans kid. And we buy into their narrative. It's why I think we lose. And I have to live in a state where rape victims can't get an abortion because of this bullshit. And so I'm going to fight till the bitter end, and I'm not going to let some MAGA moron define what progressive values are. And I think it's a really dangerous precedent, Mr. Emanuel. I'm sorry, but I have to push back. And I'm not some coastal elite liberal.
Listen, where you choose to live, but I just got to be honest with you. You keep talking about living in this red state craziness. There is U-Haul if you want to move out, but I would just tell you this. My view is there's a whole set of issues, and these are side tangential issues. They're not core.
Boom. Keep doing that, man. The Republicans should be like, hell yeah, let's keep making it about the bathroom. Both of them swing and miss on a daily basis. So wait a minute here. Rather than focus on the economy, rather than focus on the cost of life, rather than focus on the things that matter, let's focus on the little things that make big news but affect a few. It's not about bullying a trans. You shouldn't bully anybody, for Christ's sake. Why is it? Okay, so what if it was just a straight white kid? Can we just bully him? Just who can I bully? No, shouldn't be bullying anybody. You shouldn't. But the left, you guys run with this. And by the way, this is also the same group of people, the left, that if you don't allow somebody in to the bathroom with her cock hanging out, and you tell the 14-year-old girls, like, I feel uncomfortable. You're like, sorry, you're trans. You're transphobe right there. You make it about this. You do. And while she was talking about home ownership, Kamala was. Really? Because she seemed to be pretty cool with, I don't know, people that were here illegally in prison getting transition surgery. That doesn't seem like a kitchen table issue. It doesn't. And who's obsessed with it? I'm over talking about it as a parent. That's why my kids are homeschooled. I don't need wacky shit. I've been there, done that. I have. No, you know what? I don't need their life sucked out of them by a bunch of administrators, for the most part, who are more interested in the politics of school than what the teachers are doing, who don't give the teachers the help they need. And this bizarre world of 8 to 4, it's like it's so structured. No, I'm sorry, sucks. That alone is a dream killer. But this crazy stuff about the books today, SCOTUS talking about that because books were on trial today. I want you to listen to this. It's just a bit of it. If you ever watch anything or listen to anything that has to do with SCOTUS, know that as they ask questions, you can tell where they're going to go with the ruling. Now, do I think that the ruling is going to be that parents have choice when it comes to classes, books, and certain things? Yes, I do. It's not about banning books. It's not about banning books. Banning books is bad. It's about a little common sense. Maybe my 6-year-old doesn't need to know what a butt plug is. Maybe my 6-year-old doesn't need to read a book about a puppy at a pride parade. And at the end, if she wants to answer some questions about, the drag queen in leather, maybe, no, we'll leave that to something else. It's common sense. It's logic. How pissed would parents be if tomorrow I had a reading day we were going to do, and I brought Savannah and Crystal to read kids' books? And you know who Savannah and Crystal are because they're now coming to the stage. As they go to read books, we'll play a little Pour Some Sugar on it from Def Leppard. How would that be?
I just want to make sure I understand a few fact things and then a law question. What age do you, in Montgomery County, teach students normally about human sexuality?
I think that it begins in either 4th or 5th grade.
The human sexuality class.
The family life and human sexuality curriculum.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure.
Starts in 4th or 5th grade, you think?
So.
Is there anything you can point us to in the record on that?
I don't think so.
Okay. And second, these books are being used in English class.
The division between English class and other things in a 2nd grade classroom doesn't really exist. You're sort of in a room with a teacher, and sometimes.
No, I appreciate that. I went to 2nd grade too.
Yeah.
But it's part of the English curriculum that these books are being used in. I thought that was.
Yeah, I'm not fighting the premise. I'm just saying that
it's not the math class.
It is not.
It's not the human sexuality class.
It is certainly not the human sexuality class.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of fighting the premise that there's a neat distinction.
Okay, and they're being used in English language instruction at age 3. Some of them.
So Pride Puppy was the book that was used for the pre-kindergarten curriculum. That's no longer in the curriculum.
That's the one where they are supposed to look for the leather and things and bondage, things like that.
It's not bondage. It's a woman in a leather.
Sex worker, right?
No, that's not correct. No.
I read it.
It's a drag queen.
Drag queen and drag
correct.
queen.
The leather that they're pointing to is a woman in a leather jacket. And one of the words is drag queen in the search.
And they're supposed to look for those.
It is an option at the end of the book, correct?
Yeah, okay. And you've included these in the English language curriculum rather than the human sexuality curriculum to influence students. Is that fair? That's what the district court found.
I think to the extent the district court found that it was to influence them towards civility. The natural consequence of being exposed
Whatever, but to influence them.
In the manner that I just mentioned, yes.
Okay. And responding to parents who are concerned, do you agree that there was some intemperate language used?
I don't know that those were responding to parents who were concerned. This was after the fact for most of these comments. And this was in a very public setting, which obviously got heated and some intemperate comments.
Yeah, got heated, as they do. And I'm going to say this. If people are always worried about the separation of church and state, as you should be. If you were to teach Bible in there, people say you're indoctrinating kids. But yet, the Pride Puppy, along with several other books they were talking about today. Well, yes, it's about influencing, but for them to be civil. Call it what you want. Let's not bullshit each other. There's a reason for this. There's a reason they're doing it. There's no reason for these to be in school. I was like a freshman, maybe junior high. We had a class. Right now, remember, this is the 80s where the parents kind of didn't give a shit what we were doing. Right? They used to have that commercial on MTV. Do you know who your kids are? My parents were like, no, that's good. Because if they're here, they're annoying us. And we'd have a class and it would be a big deal. They're going to teach us about sex. And they take out the banana. We put a condom on, like, and we move on. And that was when we're 14, 15, right? Like it was, we were a bit older. You're talking about Pride Puppy for what? Being kind, it's a good thing. Being open-minded, totally fine. We have missed what this whole situation is truly about for a lot of people out there. If the left, you guys really want to know, you've got a lot of advocates out there who are activists and who are pushing things that, quite frankly, even some of my Democrat friends, who in some of them, by the way, are left of Bernie, go, yeah, I don't think I'd let my kid read that. I don't think I'd let my kids see that. It's not about banning books. Some of it's about age appropriate, but it's also about, let's ask some serious questions of why we're even talking about some of these things. You can have a conversation with a bunch of 7, 8, 9-year-olds about, hey, we should be nice to people. Some people are a little bit different. Some people are taller. Some people are shorter. Some people are a little bit plumpier. And we can go around and talk about that and we move on. We don't need a lot of this insanity, which doesn't just kind of feel like indoctrination or influence. It is. Common sense shouldn't be uncommon, but it is. And yes, I think the parents are going to have a right. They wanted to argue today in this that, well, we can't have parents opting out with their kids because we just don't have enough time. And they're like, well, you let other situations where parents are allowed to opt out and you changed it so they couldn't opt out of this. Well, because we were worried because there's going to be so many kids. Well, that's even scarier. So you already know there's going to be a bunch of kids who aren't going to be involved in this, yet you still want to run it. And your answer is, well, we just won't let them even opt out of it. After COVID, I said this during COVID and after it, parents will remember. And they have. They haven't forgotten a lot of the stuff they've seen. They feel frustrated. And it's not just about school choice and things of that nature. There's a lot of things that went on that pissed parents off. They want some control back, and they should have some. I was a kid growing up. Most of you watching this probably said the same thing. You know what? What did I always say? Education begins at home. Yet somewhere along the line, they've decided, no, education begins where the educators want it to begin. I'm glad parents are taking more of an active role. And you know what? You should be kind to each other. It shouldn't be this hard. Some people are different. Some people are struggling with things mentally. I get that. But this is ridiculous. And judging by the question and answer portion of the program at SCOTUS today, I'm assuming it's going to be 7-2, probably. And it's not, I wouldn't be surprised if one liberal justice jumps over and says, well, this is about, parents. It's common sense, which has become uncommon. And this stuff, well, quite frankly, it has no room in the classroom. It doesn't. And you can be kind in a lot of different ways. You could teach a lot of different things. But it's funny how the only thing that seems to be taught anymore is a certain group who are advocates and, quite frankly, activists to the point of being, quite frankly, at times unstable, pushing things on pre-kindergartners, which I think is ridiculous, let alone kindergarten, let alone first, second, third grade. Keep doing that. And another opportunity for people to go, and that's why we homeschool. Fun hanging out with you guys. Again, the Pope has passed away. If you missed any of the show, grab my podcast from earlier today. We did a big thing on the Pope in the first hour of the show on what the conclave is, how it's broken down, how interesting it is. And, there's a movie out by it, but it's very interesting, that whole thing. And we also gave you the 5 betting favorites because, yes, you can bet on anything. Talk about degenerates. We gave you the 5 betting favorites. And who are they? And the conclave can't begin at least until I think it's 2 weeks from today. So still a ways out. Right now they have a person from Dallas, father who is kind of like he is handling popish duties, but he is not the Pope. He doesn't have the ring. Handles the business. So, and the Pope will be laid to rest on Friday. But it was the conspiracy theories of J.D. Vance did this. You people are working hard out there. You really are. You really are. Follow along, like, and subscribe. Share this. Appreciate it when you do that. And we'll be back tomorrow. I came a little earlier today because my 6-year-old and I, we've got a big night here. She's got her first gymnastics class in a while. So we're heading out to that. But back tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Have a blessed one. Follow along across all of our social media and listen for our radio show tomorrow. As always, night-night.